In the tech world, if you are late to the party, you don't just miss the appetizers, you starve. Today, we are performing an autopsy on one of the most spectacular, expensive, and drawn-out bets in modern tech history. A platform backed by the richest software company on Earth, which had a 10-year head start, bought the world's biggest phone manufacturer, and still managed to lose to a search engine company and a fruit. We are talking, of course, about Windows Mobile, a saga of vanity, bad timing, worse management, and a start button that just wouldn't quit. This is how Microsoft lost the pocket war. To understand how Microsoft lost, we have to remember when they were winning. The year is 2000. The internet screams when you dial in, and mobile computing meant strapping a brick to your belt.
Can I get a page on Dr. Wilson?
That ran Windows CE. Microsoft's strategy was pretty simple. People like Windows on their PC, so let's just shrink-ray that bad boy. Look at this interface. It literally had a start menu on a 3-inch screen. You needed the precision of a neurosurgeon just to open Solitaire. They relied on resistive touchscreens, the squishy kind you had to physically dent to register a click. And the stylus? Ah, the stylus. If you lost that little plastic toothpick, you were dead. But the insane part is that it worked. By 2007, Microsoft had about 42% of the US enterprise smartphone market. They were the kings of the corporate email machine. They thought they were building a fortress. In reality, they were building a sandcastle at low tide.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years.
January 9th, 2007. Steve Jobs walks on stage and introduces a widescreen iPod with touch controls. A revolutionary mobile phone, a breakthrough internet communicator.
And we are calling it iPhone. Today,
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not.
Ah, that clip aged like milk left on a radiator. But let's not just mock Ballmer. Let's analyze why he was wrong. He wasn't stupid, he was blinded by the status quo. Microsoft viewed phones as tiny PCs for checking emails. Apple viewed them as lifestyle appliances. Ballmer looked at the subsidy model, where carriers pay for the phone, and thought, no carrier will pay $500 for a toy. He missed the fact that consumers would happily sell their souls and sign a 2-year contract for a device that actually made the internet fun. While Microsoft was laughing, Google wasn't. They saw the iPhone, panicked, scrapped their BlackBerry clone prototype, and started building Android. Microsoft, they released Windows Mobile 6, which still had a start menu. By 2010, the building was on fire.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure,
stay
everyone?
calm.
What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Microsoft realized that putting a desktop OS in a pocket was a terrible idea, and they did something brave. They burned it all down. Enter Windows Phone 7. And honestly, it was beautiful. They introduced the Metro UI. No static icons, live tiles that flipped and danced. It was distinct, fluid, and genuinely faster than Android at the time. It was a glance and go. But there was a catch. A massive, fatal catch. To make this new OS, they broke backwards compatibility. All those Windows Mobile 6 apps business relied on, gone. Straight to the trash. Microsoft basically told their loyal user base, hey, thanks for sticking with us. Now throw your phone in the garbage and start over. And the user said, okay, and bought an iPhone. But wait, it gets worse. Just 2 years later, in 2012, Microsoft realized that the kernel, the core code, of the Windows Phone 7, which was based on the old Windows CE, was too weak to compete with iOS and Android. So they decided to switch to the Windows NT kernel, the same one that runs on your laptop. And this became Windows Phone 8. Great for the future, right? Sure, but they announced that the existing Windows Phone 7 devices could not be upgraded to Windows Phone 8. Imagine buying a flagship Nokia Lumia 900 in April 2012. And in June, Microsoft tells you, yeah, that's paperweight now. No new apps for you. They burned their early adopters twice in 2 years. By 2013, Windows Phone had a market share of about 3%. The only manufacturer actually making these phones was Nokia. Nokia was in big trouble. Their CEO, Stefan Elop, a former Microsoft executive, famously wrote the burning platform memo, saying they had to jump. They jumped into Microsoft's arms. Steve Ballmer, in his final big act as CEO, decided to acquire Nokia's device division for $7.2 billion. Why? Because Nokia was secretly threatening to switch to Android. If Nokia left, Windows Phone was dead immediately. So, Microsoft paid $7 billion essentially to keep a patient on life support. The culture clash was immediate and toxic. You had Nokia in Finland, a company that treated hardware engineering like a religion, obsessing over durability, antenna placement, and build quality. Then you had Microsoft in Redmond, a software giant that saw hardware just as plastic buckets to carry their code. It was like trying to merge a group of meticulous Swiss watchmakers with a chaotic internet startup. One side wanted to build a masterpiece that lasted forever, the other just wanted to ship the update. But the real killer wasn't the kernel, or the stylus, or the acquisition. It was the app gap. In this vicious cycle of death, developers didn't make apps because there were no users, and users didn't buy the phone because there were no apps. Then repeat until bankruptcy. And let's not forget the sabotage. Google hated Windows Phone. They refused to build a YouTube app. When Microsoft built their own excellent ads-free YouTube app, Google blocked it, claiming it violated terms of service. Snapchat never came. Instagram arrived years late and stayed in beta for an eternity. Pokemon Go, a myth. You were walking around with a 41-megapixel camera on the Lumia 1020, but you couldn't post the photo on Instagram. It was like owning a Ferrari, but living on an island with no roads. Enter Satya Nadella in 2014. He took one look at the mobile division and did the math. He realized that the war was over. The third ecosystem wasn't happening. In 2015, Microsoft wrote off $7.6 billion related to the Nokia deal. That means they acknowledged the entire acquisition was worthless. Also, they fired thousands of Nokia employees. They released a few last whimpers, like Lumia 950 with Continuum, which let you plug your phone into a monitor to use it like a PC. It was a cool tech demo, but nobody cared. In 2019, Bill Gates called losing to Android his greatest mistake ever.
You know, the greatest mistake ever is the whatever mismanagement I engaged in that caused Microsoft not to be what Android is. That is, Android is the standard phone platform, non-Apple phone platform. That was a natural thing for Microsoft to win.
He estimated that the value of non-Apple phone market was $400 billion. That is money that should have been Microsoft's. Windows Mobile failed because of a strategy tax. For a decade, Microsoft tried to protect their PC Windows monopoly by making mobile phones act like PCs. They didn't want to cannibalize the main business, so they crippled their new one. The irony? Windows is now a better mobile developer than ever. They make some of the best apps on iOS and Android. They won by becoming a software provider on the platforms that killed them. So pour one out for the live dial. It was a good idea, in the wrong place and in the wrong time, run by the wrong people.